be there. If I die for you, if I go for you, I'm gonna be there. Open the doors. Come on in, motherfucker.
Alright. I'm going to start inking this. Some of you may recognize this from an image I posted a little while ago. I think it'll probably be the cover for a book I'm putting together. But I have this idea of a kind of combo layered sort of thing because I tend to draw on acetate a lot. It's translucent like vellum or tracing paper. So I thought it might be kind of cool to have the pencil piece on the hardcover and then do a vellum dust jacket where I put the line work. So I figured I'd create an inked version for the line work, which I think will be cool. Then we'll pause briefly, scan that in, and then I'm going to actually do some heavier blacks on it. Just to have some options as I go. Using some trusty India ink. Dr. Martens is my favorite. Dr. P.H. Martens, not to be confused with the boots. So, I don't know. I like their ink. And at some point, I will also bring in some ink wash, which I did. I took the Dr. Martens and just diluted it, right? So I have a 30%. I just put them in jars so I don't have to constantly create them. That would just be a pain. 30%, a 50%, and I have an 80%. So I'll bring those in later, but for now, I'm just going to worry about line work. Trusty G nib. This is a E&M nib holder. I just like the shape. I like the look. They're really comfortable to work with, especially since I tend to hold them a little further back. I don't usually get in like that on them. I tend to hold them a little bit back here. This is a G-nib that I ground it down a little bit just on a sharpening stone. Just filed it just so it's a little finer. It gives it a little more flex and I can get finer lines with it. So it just gives me a little more variety than a normal G-nib would. Really quick, probably 2 minutes of filing it down on a sharpening stone and that's it. So nothing crazy. So, cool. M Grunge likes my idea for the cover, so good. I'm glad. That makes me happy. I hope it looks awesome. I think it will, if it looks the way that it looks in my head. Which, sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. By the way, I am working on watercolor paper. This is Saunders Waterford Hot Press. It's not the bright white, it's their like normal white, whatever that is. I think this is the lighter. This is like 140 pound paper, I think. They also make like a 300 pound, but because I was actually lightboxing this off of my original pencil sketch, the 300 pound would have been just too thick to really see what I was doing. But it's a nice, hot press, so it's smooth, but still has some nice texture, which works well for the pen and ink. And we'll bring some brushes into it as well. I know this isn't anything crazy. I'm literally just inking my pencil sketch. But one of the things that I really love about using a nib, a steel nib pen, although in this case I think these are like titanium or something. But I love how much they lend themselves to angular marks. I think you can get some really fun kind of line work from that. And as always, y'all can chat amongst yourselves, or if you have any questions, put them up in the chat, and I will always do my best to answer them, if I can. I don't have all the answers. Thankfully, life would be boring otherwise. It's interesting because I do, as a lot of people might know, I do like to sketch directly in ink, and it's interesting how much that has changed my my inking style. And also just how comfortable I am when I actually do go to ink something. Like, I don't feel the need to kind of stick to exactly what I had, or, like, I'm not afraid to change things or add in some details or whatever. And it's also helped me to keep my inks a little more loose and fresh. So it's been a really good practice. I highly recommend it. If you're not used to sketching directly in ink, I would recommend just, playing through the pain and doing it. It's not about getting a perfect, like, anatomically perfect piece all the time. Because there's something to be said, I think, for just direct mark making. Whether or not it's completely accurate. So, I would recommend that. One of the things I love about the steel nib is just how much it lends itself to some really nice calligraphic marks. You know, it's hard to beat, like, really nice calligraphy in drawing. I think that's one of the things that will just, like, add so much to the character. Of course, I'm risking jumping right into this without warming up at all first. Which is why I'm not doing anything too crazy just yet, but we'll get there. And it'll be fun. Thanks, Mr. Sean. Master Sean. Mr. Master Sean. No, really, thank you. I'm glad you love it. I love sharing it. And yeah, man, streaming is its own kind of reward, right? It's a little bit of show and tell, a little bit of performance art, all mixed into one. A lot of times when if I ink like this and I use the India ink, Dr. P.H. Martins also makes this awesome matte black, their Black Star matte black. Such a killer looking ink, especially if you're gonna lay down any large dark shapes. But I specifically wanted the look of the normal India ink on this, because when you start to lay down the larger shapes, I like the way that you can see the layers of marks, and if it prints well, that can look really amazing. Maybe. I hope. Felt like the dragon should have an ear canal. Yeah, the music is Junior Kimbrough. I'm a big fan of the Mississippi Hill Country Blues. Stuff makes me happy. And he was one of the best. I think the challenge with doing something in a steel nib pen sometimes can be that it's not as easy to vary your marks, so it can get repetitive quickly if you're not careful, which mostly just requires us to be a little more present to what we're doing. But also, you know, starting out with the lighter line weight then I can always come in with a brush afterward, which I will do if I decide I want some really heavy, solid marks. And that can help to add a lot of variety. I think it's always good to add variety to our mark making. Just do what we can to not make the whole thing feel monotonous. Which, of course, then you have to balance with creating some kind of shape language in your piece. So it's a tricky balance of variety and consistency. That's always fun. Small breakdown of my history with art. Well, I don't know if there's a super quick way without being too quick, because I started drawing as soon as I could, like most of us, I think. Most people in general, not just artists. Like as kids, everybody draws. It's just that some of us never stop. Right, so, I mean, art was pretty much always a focus, probably because I grew up, reading some comics and watching Disney movies and stuff. Disney was kind of always my barometer, my gauge of quality. Even as a kid, I was like, I didn't really like TV animation as much because it just didn't look as good as Disney animation. Not really understanding at the time, of course, the differences between animating for film and animating for television. But I could see that visually there was a difference, and one of them I didn't like. But really, so I was always drawing. I always wanted to do art, when I grew up. And so it was always my focus. But within that, I bounced around all over the place in terms of what I wanted to do, because when I was younger, I didn't really understand how big the art industry really is. Like I knew comics and I knew animation. That was it. Like I didn't really realize that, when it comes to animation, someone's got to design those characters. And so there's a whole slew of artists behind the scenes that I didn't know about, and same with live action film and, later video games and all that stuff. All the things that we kind of know now, but didn't have as much access to when I was a kid. So I think I kind of bounced around as I learned more and more and more about the art industry and really how massive it was, and so much of it sounded interesting to me. But then at the end of the day, I think what I always gravitated toward was just drawing and painting traditionally. I mean, I love doing it digitally too at times, but it just, I don't know, I miss the tactile response that I get from pencil or pen or brushes on actual paper or canvas. I should say linen. I don't actually like painting on canvas. Yeah, there's something about that, and then at the end of it, having a real piece of art to hold, it's hard to beat that. So I kind of, I did go to school for computer animation after junior college. I did 2 years of junior college, and then I did a 2-year program in animation. where we actually drew a ton in our sketchbooks. And that's when I learned about character design and all these other avenues where I could actually get paid to draw, not just like sit in front of 3D Studio Max and animate. So then I kind of switched gears and went back to school afterward. Moved down to Pasadena, California, and went to Art Center for illustration. And then right after school, I got into advertising, working as a sketch artist. And that's kind of where I've been. I guess I just finished my 11th year as a sketch artist. So it's been a ride, but I love it because we do get to draw on paper a lot. Get paid pretty well to do it, and not a lot of industries do that anymore. And it pretty much just keeps me drawing every day, at the very least illustrating, right? Maybe doing some digital illustration and stuff. So pays the bills and lets me draw every day. Can't complain. I did like Art Center. I mean, fantastic artists there as teachers. The sad thing is, I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending it anymore. It's just too expensive now. It was already expensive when I went. And I graduated at the end of 2007, and it's only gotten more and more expensive. And I just think with all the other great avenues that we have now for learning, whether it's LAFA or New Masters Academy or Schoolism or 3 Kicks or Brainstorm or any of these places, there's so many ways to learn now online. Very, very few people care about whether you have a degree or not. I've never been asked for my degree, although I did recently see a listing, it's either just for Disney or it was for Marvel, where I think they actually did require a bachelor's degree, which is interesting. I haven't seen something like that in a long time. But that was for a more advanced position, and I think if you're qualified, you're qualified. So I don't know that I'd recommend Art Center, though that's a tough one to say because there are still amazing teachers there. I just don't know that it's worth the amount of student loan debt that you come out with. But that's easy for me to say in hindsight. I learned a ton, made fantastic friends there, people I'm still friends with, people that I work with and have worked with in the past. So, I don't know. Hey, if your parents are going to pay for it, do it. No, I did not frame my degree. It's sitting somewhere. I couldn't tell you where. Yeah, I don't know where. Actually, I think I see it on my bookshelf. I probably should have started on that side. Although the nice thing with India ink is once it's dry, it's dry. You don't have to worry about smudging it and all that stuff. Not like you do with pencils. I live in Los Angeles. I have not heard of Modern Day James. What is it? Or who is he? What is he? Cool, I'll check him out. I'm always curious to see, how people are kind of doing all the YouTube stuff and their streaming and all that. I mean, like, I think if I had a little more time, I could, get a little more, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say into it because I'm still into it. I just don't have a ton of time to, like, get into the production value, and there's something, to me, I kind of dig the lo-fi aspect that, I don't know, maybe makes it a little more down to earth, a little more like we're just kind of hanging out. There's something to that I really enjoy. But maybe a higher production value would make me more respectable. Always good to clean off the nib every now and then, because it's the one thing with India ink, it doesn't like to come off very easily once it's dry. But you can scrape it off a little bit. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I think, like, depending on what you're doing, like, really going crazy with the performance art aspect maybe isn't the best the best way to go about it, especially if, like, all I'm doing is drawing. It's a pretty chill activity, so getting really crazy wouldn't do my drawing any favors. And I'm not as into the whole, online persona thing. Like, I don't really have time for that. At the end of the day, I just want to draw fun shit. I love, like, once you file down these nibs, man, you can just get such fine lines. It's pretty amazing. Because really, I was just trying to mimic what my Pilot Elabo can do. Like, once I got a custom nib from NIBS.com, it's just a Pilot Falcon nib that they grind down to be able to get like much finer lines, and it has way more flex to it. It's not cheap, but it's so worth it if you love drawing in pen. But once I drew with that thing, it's like, oh man, how can I get that with a normal nib? And so I tried grinding down one of these G nibs and did the trick. Mostly because I want to be able to use India ink, and I'm not going to put India ink in a really expensive fountain pen because it'll just clog it up, and that's no good. I am not a huge fan of the pocket brush, honestly. I don't know if it's because, you know, when I got really into watercolors and stuff, and I was using like sable brushes, so natural hair brushes, and there's something about the synthetic brush pens that I'm just not a big fan of. I don't like the spring that they have, even though, I mean, hell, you know, Kim Jong-il does amazing stuff with synthetic brush pens. So no one can ever say that they're terrible. It just depends on how much of a badass you are. I think just for the way that I draw, I don't like the spring in synthetic brushes. So I tend to use the Kaime natural hair brush pens. They have a bit of a longer bristle on them. They're made of weasel hair, and they have a great, I don't know, pressure curve to use, you know, Photoshop terms. And they allow you to get some really fine lines and some really heavy lines and everything in between. So yeah, when it comes to brush pens, I'm definitely a Kaime fan. Kaimei. And you can get them on Amazon. They're usually somewhere between $25 and $30. Totally worth it. They take ink cartridges. Just make sure you get the brush pen cartridges. I think they're like fountain brush pen ink cartridges or something, because they also make a fountain pen ink, and it's not quite as heavy, so you don't get as deep of blacks with it. But yeah. But yeah, those are my favorite by a long way. Like that. The matte black, the Dr. Martin's Black Star matte black, man, that thing will dry on your nib. And it can get gnarly. Brett asking if I do many studies anymore. In what sense? Do you mean in terms of like, say, classes, or do you mean actually doing like little painting or drawing studies of a subject? Although if I think about it, I suppose the answer to both would be yes, I still do. I love, when I stumble across like an awesome online course, which usually means it's taught by an artist that I really, really admire. And then I don't do a ton of like sitting down and doing still lives or anatomical studies per se, but at the same time, so much of my job is drawing from reference that I guess, like, yes, but not in an academic sense. It's just that, because we are drawing all these different actors and stuff for movie posters and things like that, so we're constantly having to draw from reference. As far as master copies go, no. I think about it, and that's one of the things that I never enjoyed doing, even though I completely see the value in it. And I always think, like, what, I should just do it. Just do a really killer master copies, see what you learn. But I think at the end of the day, at this point, there are so many things that, like, I actually want to work on, and things that I want to draw, and that I would rather do that stuff. But I will study the hell out of old masters. I will just pore over their work and break it down as much as I can, and really look at what they're doing, and see what from there I might be able to use in my own work. So while I'm not doing actual drawings or paintings off of their stuff, I'm definitely like analyzing them in that way. So kind of, I guess. No, I always get excited to draw stuff. But part of what it is, and I think it took me a while to kind of really realize this or recognize it, is that a lot of it is the act of drawing that I really love. I love putting marks on paper and seeing them kind of turn into something. And so while there are probably certain subjects matters that I do enjoy drawing a lot. It's also just the act of it. And so, when I'm at work, like, I don't care that much about working on some romantic comedy, but I love drawing, and I love drawing people, and so it's fun. It's fun to tackle people that I wouldn't normally, not like, tackle people, but though that might be fun too. But tackling subjects that I wouldn't normally draw on my own, I find that really enjoyable. Because then I get to kind of learn some new shapes and tackle some problems that I might not normally come up against and figure out a solution. As artists, most of our job is really troubleshooting. So the better we can get at doing that, the better we are at our jobs. That's a good thing. But, because some people, and I ran into this when I was really, trying to look for some new people to bring into my department. A lot of people are very singular in their focus and very specific in that they really want to do concept art for video games. Like, that's what they want to do. They want to design video games, and that's cool. Like, that's fine. For me, even though I think that's fun, I've done a little bit of that. I think after a while I kind of realized that wasn't my driving force. I really just love drawing, man. I love painting too. And the fun thing is that with the variety of stuff, not just subject matter, but also style in advertising, I've gotten the chance to do a lot of different things for work and, get paid for it. From dabbling in oils to doing some watercolors, ink wash drawings, ink line drawings, and of course pencil drawings all the time. So, just constantly messing around in those things kind of made me ready for those opportunities when they arose. For them to be like, oh, it'd be cool if we could do, some like kind of watercolor portraits. I'm like, cool, yeah, I've been painting in watercolors, so I gotcha. Right. Louis Pasteur that said something about inspiration comes to the prepared mind, or opportunity comes to the prepared mind, or something like that. It's always I'm doing something like this. One of the questions I'm constantly having to ask myself is, when we get into some of these shapes that are pushed back, whether I want to push them back with an ink wash or if I want to do some hatching and push them back. And two very different looks. Can always do both. Do like a little bit of hatching. I do play. I more dabble. Like I would never say like, oh yeah, I play guitar, because it's not like I'm great at guitar. I can't shred like crazy or anything like that. But I do enjoy playing. And these days, I've mostly loved playing the 3-string cigar box guitar. That shit's just fun. It's so simple, and you can still get so much sound out of it. And pretty soon, I actually want to start building them too. I have the parts already. I just have other projects that are demanding my time right now, that are a little more time sensitive. But I think once I do get around to actually building some of them, I actually want to put... I'd love to like do some artwork and kind of laminate some... Not laminate, but mount some prints onto the front of the cigar boxes and, you know, kind of create some cool little custom CBGs. I think that'd be fun. Distress them a bit and just make them look cool. Ooh. Lead as in like a pencil lead? Pencil lead. Well, what's funny... Okay, so I did this like pencil, but I was just tracing off my original sketch. So this was actually just a mechanical pencil. I think I have a 2B in there. But I wasn't looking to get any kind of variety of line weight. This is since I would do that all in the inks. But I actually don't sketch a lot in graphite anymore, to be honest. I tend to do all my pencil work in Prismacolors these days. Prismacolors and Faber-Castells, because on on acetate or tracing paper or vellum, you can actually erase them. So I like the feel of it. I like the versatility in it. Since I can, do the line work on the front and do the tone on the back, and I don't have to worry about messing up my line work. So it's super forgiving in that way. So that tends to be how I work if I work in pencils. Sneezing. Man, there has been this smoke alarm, when they start to die and they beep every 2 minutes or something. This thing has been beeping, for weeks, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. It's quiet, it doesn't disturb me, but every now and then I I hear it and I'm like, dude, thing's still going. I think it's from the house next to my apartment, but I don't know. Yeah, thank you, sir. Sometimes I get to a point in a drawing like this where I'm just like, ugh, why did I do so many spines on this dragon? But I was kind of thinking of like iguanas and stuff, and I just love that crazy like buzzsaw thing they've got going on down their backs. And once you start, you just gotta commit. Get it done. It'll all be worth it in the end. Or so you hope. But then it's nice to create a little bit of variety within that. Within that shape as much as you can. I'm one of those when I do draw dragons, man, I pull anatomy from all over the place. I feel like almost always my core anatomy tends to come from like big cats, just because, when it comes to badass predators, it's hard to get more badass than a lion or a tiger. But then I'll pull a bit from, horses and then reptiles and, but not as much from reptiles. You'd think when I'm drawing a giant reptile that I would really lean heavily on that anatomy, and I don't. I think because like the mysticism of a dragon, I just think it's cooler to kind of make it into something that isn't quite like anything we have, in this world. Unfortunately, I wish there were dragons. Don't we all? Unless it was like Reign of Fire dragons, and then no, because that would just suck. We get enough wildfires in Southern California. We don't need dragons adding to the chaos. Hey, the Azon. Azon. My cat just woke herself up coughing. Freaked herself out. Can I draw you something? Probably not. I don't mean to be a smartass. I just don't currently don't take commissions. Too many projects on the plate and not enough time. That's the love-hate relationship of the full-time job. I get paid well to draw all day, every day, but it takes up a lot of my time. Well, all day, 4 days a week. Let's be honest. Not a bad gig. It's tough when I'm like almost done with this phase. I'm just like, don't rush it. But I'm just kind of excited to get to the brush. Throw in some kind of heavier, some accents really, some dark accents. And then I will scan it real quick. Yeah, my pleasure, Master Sean. Come back again next week. And then you can always, obviously jump back on and see where all this craziness ended up. So, enjoy your Monday. I probably won't do a personalized sketch in every book I sell. That would have the potential to be an insane amount of sketches. I haven't quite gotten that far yet. We still need to finish putting the book together. I might make a limited tier for that on Kickstarter, though. I'm not opposed to the idea. Man, I'm trying to remember the last commission I did, and I think it was actually for one of my bosses at work. He wanted a giant ink drawing. Super fun. But man, I was not used to working that size, so it was a different kind of a challenge. Because he wanted it full movie poster size, so whatever that is, 27 by 40 inches or something like that. All in ink, and yeah, that was interesting. Super fun. I actually want to do more big pieces like that. I'm just not used to thinking at that scale. So I don't just want to like take the same thing I would normally do and make it bigger. Like, I actually would want it to be more involved. It's just a different thought process. But yeah, really fun. Yeah, I don't normally take commissions. He just paid me quite nicely for it, and you can't really say no when your boss is like, hey, will you draw me something? I'll pay you for it. You don't say no to that. Especially when they're just like, yeah, I just want you to do what you do. And they actually mean it, right? The amount of clients that are like, oh yeah, just like do your thing. By that we mean do exactly what we want you to do, which has nothing to do with what you normally do. Get a little bit of texture in here. Yeah, actually, I own most of his books, I think. Kim Jong-il is the man. It's like the grand master of ink drawing. Well, in some respects. Let's say he's a grandmaster. But it depends on the style that you're going for, right? Bring a little bit more texture into here. Not too much. Obviously, like when you're working on a creature this size, I think it could be easy to go overboard. I think it's always good, no matter what, to give the eye some places to rest, but also like you don't want it to compete too much with her. You know, and once we start putting some more value into here, then you know we can kind of push and pull some stuff. LRS. I don't know what LRS is. And it would all depend on whether that's something I felt like drawing or not. Get some of this ink off. I'm sure there's a better way to clean these. In fact, I think I might have some actual cleaner, which maybe I should break out after this. But whatever, moving to brush anyway. Actually, let's make sure. Moment of truth, right? Is when you... Yeah, we don't need to erase anything right now. We'll wait. I'm just going to use this is a Winsor Newton Series 7. This is a number 1. So I'm just going to use this to kind of throw down some accents. Start getting some legit ink on here. When you use India ink with a brush, especially if you're using a nice sable brush, definitely make sure to clean your brush often. You really don't want this stuff to dry in your bristles. In my experience, although I know that some Sumi ink is waterproof, but it usually, from what I've seen, it's kind of only waterproof after it's dried for a while. And I mean, sometimes we're talking like 24 hours, because I can lay some Sumi ink down and put water on it 20 minutes later and it'll just bleed all over the place. So if I want something that's going to be waterproof, I go for India ink. I don't really have the time to sit there and let my ink drawing dry for 24 hours before, say, like doing some washes on it. Whereas India ink, as soon as it's dry at all, it's waterproof. It's not going anywhere. So that tends to be why I go for India ink for something like this, where I am going to throw some ink washes on it because I don't want the lines to bleed. But if I actually do want a little bit of a watercolor kind of ink wash look to the whole thing, then I'll use Sumi ink. Or if I'm going to ink something and I want to use markers over it, Sumi ink plays much better with markers than India ink does, because the solvent in like Copic markers will pick up the India ink. It's sensitive to solvents, whereas the water-based Sumi ink is not. So there's a time and a place for both, in my opinion. But for something like this, yeah, India ink is my go-to. But it is good to just like experiment with all of it, you know. I say India ink doesn't play well with markers, but you might discover a cool look that you can use. So I think it's good to try them all out. You never want to assume that, oh, okay, then this is the only thing that I need, because you just don't know where you might find an interesting approach. I think to that effect, it's also good to try out different surfaces, right? Because they all will react a little differently. And even in terms of, like, I was using Arch's watercolor paper for a long time, mostly because that's sort of what's widely available. And then I heard about Saunders. Saunders Waterford paper, which is made by St. Cuthbert's Mill, I think in the UK. And so I tried them out, and man, I love the Saunders paper. That's what this is. Especially if you are doing watercolor, it doesn't dry as fast, which, again, you might be doing something where you want it to dry really fast, in which case Arches is better. But for how I work, I like Saunders because it allows me to kind of push the watercolor around a little bit longer. And a little bit longer meaning maybe even a couple minutes longer, which in watercolor is like forever. So, I really dig that. Hit these horn tips. Yeah, I agree. It can be, trial and error can be expensive. I think it's definitely good to at least try and limit some of that, where it's like, I have some Arches watercolor blocks, although I think I may have given them to my brother because he likes them, so didn't have to worry, like that wasn't money wasted. But yeah, I definitely try and limit it, and limit it to at least things that I will use eventually, even if I don't go through them immediately. Like, that's okay, as long as I, see some use for them in the future at some point. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't totally wasted. I think it's fascinating that they still have not quite figured out how to replicate natural hair in a brush. It seems like it could potentially be so simple, but I'm guessing it's really not. There's just something about the pressure curves and in the natural hair that, I don't know, they just, maybe it's just how I draw and paint. They just work for me. And I don't know, it's just kind of like a perfect balance that I feel like gives a lot more control over the marks, which I think is worth the added cost. Again, you start putting black tips on spikes, and then you just gotta commit and say, okay. And for variety's sake, I won't do it on every single one, but at least the larger ones. I like the kind of visual effect it gives. A little bit of dry brushing for the hair. bring our pen back here for a second. It's always kind of a push and pull, you know, when you're working. Like, you get to a certain point, then you see, like, okay, it can support a little more detail here, or it might need a little more detail just to kind of pull your focus a little more. Alright, we are going to scan this. Might clean up some of this pencil just a little. I'm not too concerned with the pencil because with the hard black on there I can pretty much just get rid of it in Photoshop once it's scanned in. I don't want to actually completely get rid of it because some of it is just placeholders for where I want to throw in some washes, so I don't want to like get rid of them entirely. If you guys have any questions, any more questions, feel free to ask. I'm just gonna throw this on the scanner. Might take a minute because I'm gonna scan it at high DPI. But I'm not going anywhere. Hello, Mario Chavez. How are you doing? Ask me stuff. This will be interesting. It's always a challenge scanning something a little larger. So let's see. So how's everyone doing today? I hope you're all having a fantastic Monday, because I am. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I actually had this custom made. It's just basically just a drawing board. And I took like the clip and the stand off of my old drawing board and then just screwed them onto this one because I'm a reclaimed wood fan. Alright. Let's try this again. And I found it helps if you can have a surface that you really enjoy looking at. It makes it so much easier to just like, you know, sit down and draw. So, yeah, I recommend. I think it's one of the things that I think is really worth maybe spending some money on is just a drawing surface that makes you happy. It's like barely gonna fit on the scanner, but that's cool. Alright. Scan this bad boy, but it needs a little extra weight to hold that lid down properly. That should do it. Alright, 1200 DPI scan, here we come. Let's close up our ink. So that would suck if we knocked that over. Yeah, the drawing board I was using a lot was this one. It's a great board, but yeah, the white is kind of whatever. But it does have a great stand on the back. It's like a A-frame kind of deal. Where are we? There we are, like that. That thing's, it's cool, but it just occurred to me that like everything was just screwed in, so I could unscrew it and put it on to this, and then I was like, oh wait, I have this smaller one which is like plexiglass, never made use of that, so I just unscrewed the stand and the clip from this one and put it on my wood one, and it's great. I love it. The only thing you have to be aware of, obviously, when you're getting into wood is then the the finish on it. If you get any kind of texture, which there is a little bit on here, but it's fine if I just kind of stack up, either if I'm working on very thick paper or if I stack up paper underneath to kind of mask that texture, then it's not a big deal. Netflix recommendations, huh? I don't know. I just went through The Punisher season 2, and it was awesome. But John Bernthal's he's a badass, and he's so interesting to watch. I think he's just a very compelling actor. So, yeah, pretty rad. Otherwise, I use Netflix a lot to rewatch things that maybe I've seen elsewhere, but it's just so easy to rewatch them on Netflix, and I'll sometimes just have them playing as I'm drawing and doing all that stuff. So yeah, it all just kind of depends on what kind of stuff you like. Sorry, let's just check and see how this scan turned out. And it looks okay. Let's try and open it in preview. Big ass 1200 DPI. Yeah, not so much. Damn, it's gonna be a challenge. Alright, well, we're not gonna worry about that. Maybe. No. Alright, let's bring it back. Maybe we'll do a 600, because all that. I love it when you scan something high res and then you see there is a hair like right across the face. Like, dude, really? Yeah, I know, man. I'm bummed that they're ending that. I'm assuming I'm hoping Disney will just pick it up when they launch their streaming service, but who knows? Who knows? That would suck if they really just were like, okay, it's done. Ta-da! More weight on that. So I'm gonna get into using these ink washes that I made. It's just India ink and water. The percentage is really just the value, right? So there's like a 30% gray, there's a 50%, and then I have an 80%. I just mixed them up and put them in jars because I knew I would use them a lot. So easier than having to worry about, you know, mixing them up each time. And there's enough variety to where I can just put some water on the paper if I want to thin them out and get something in between. So we'll get into using some of these. Let's clean our water out though. Alright, one more time with this scan. Let's see how it came out. Much better, I think. Looks like it. Looks pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I'll have to do a little bit of cleanup, but that's okay. Ain't nobody perfect. Alright, let's get back to this. Tape it back down. And we'll break out our ink wash. Alright. I don't know if we'll use the 80%. I don't usually, but sometimes. In terms of brushes, I'll probably be using a Winsor Newton Series 7 number 2 quite a bit. And then I have this little Sumi brush. I wish I could tell you what kind it is. I can't. I just know it's weasel hair. And I like that it's a smaller one. A lot of the Sumi brushes get really huge. But I love that this one is a bit smaller, and Sumi brushes, when they're wet, just hold such a great tip, such a great point for how much they hold, right? They have a great sized reservoir to hold a lot of liquid. And similar, I think, with the Winsor Newton Series 7s, but obviously it's not going to hold as much as that thing. But they go to the same size tip at the end, the same size point. So, a lot of control with these, with the Sumi brush. But to start a little smaller, a little easier, I'll use the Winsor Newton. What I've also done is taken those like water brush pens and just filled them with these ink washes, and they're super fun, really easy to use. I could use them on here, honestly. But I have a little more control doing it this way in terms of if I want to kind of lighten a wash. Always got to remember that these aren't watercolors, so once they're dry, they're dry. But that's one of the things I really like about layering India ink in washes, is that you can see each layer you put down, and it has a really cool look that I enjoy quite a bit. Get some of those watermarks happening and stuff, and it's cool. I dig it. Thank you, MDR. Good to see you. It's funny, sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, did I spend enough time on this or whatever, and sometimes we just have to remember that it just, I don't know, when you work really direct, it doesn't demand as much time, and it has its own look that a lot of people really appreciate. What I might do, let's do this. Alright, so we can just lay down a little bit of water. Give ourselves some soft edges.